the comment that the Wednesday afternoon, bringing it back, right? And we lose sight of the reason why they're being released on Wednesday afternoon is because a number of teachers were laid off, and the art and the PE and health programs were eliminated at the school. And bringing those back, right, start to fill the gap on the studies and at the same time permit or eliminate the need to release the kids on Wednesday afternoon. So when we talk about that release, I think we're really talking about putting back programs into the school system. Just keep that in mind. It's not like we're throwing money out to allow kids to stay in school. We're really putting programs back, and as a result of that, we don't have to release them early, Wednesdays.
I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah. Well, yes, sir.
Mike Prisco, 12 Bishops Way. Also Chairman of Park and Recreation, but I'm not even here to talk about Park and Recreation. The reason why I wanted to stand up tonight is because I continue to keep hearing every town meeting I've lived here, every meeting here I've attended, I hear the same thing over and over. I hear cuts, I hear stabilization, I hear we're trying to look at this, we're trying to look at this. We are so short-sighted, and we're never going to get out of this hole. And I disagree with you, Mr. Dardino, when you say we are looking at revenues in the future, and you mentioned things like the GIC I never heard of, and the energy thing. You know what? Those aren't solutions right now. We need a briefing that has cuts, but we also need a briefing that has several slides that talks about the future. Yeah, we're not going to fix this budget. We're not going to come up with a solution for this budget right now. You're going to come up with a solution by cutting, but you're not going to find a solution for 2010, 2011, 2012. Not with the way we're approaching it. There's one answer, and that's revenue. We need to have a plan how we're going to create revenue in this town. And we're not going to do it on the backs of cutting this. We have to get a bigger picture. Someone's got to get control of how we bring and attract revenue to this town. When do we bring the next Walgreens in here? When do we bring, you look at our neighboring town, our neighboring town, Reading. I'm very impressed with what they've done, their approach. You look at what they're doing. They're investing in that community to attract businesses, to bring revenue. And they have schools. Go over and look at that school. It's extremely impressive. And the only way they did it is revenue, revenue, revenue. They had a plan for the 5 years. They actually thought about it, and we haven't. We keep looking at the little things. It's time to take a deep breath, step back, and let's start thinking about 2010. We should be spending our time on 2010, 2011, 2012, because 2009 is gone. That boat left a long time ago. And if you, as a selectman, don't do something about it, if you seriously don't get a grip on the revenues in this town, we are going to really, really have some trouble. And so I volunteer to support it. You build a subcommittee for it, I'm all on it. I think everybody in this room will agree with me. The answer isn't cutting anymore. It's revenue. So how do we do it? How do we track what Reading's doing? How do we do the same thing? I say we make a meeting and go over there and chat with them, see how they got there. I'm very impressed with where they are. I'm not impressed with where we're going. To put up a budget slides like this and have all sorts of cuts associated with no solutions to make sure those cuts aren't going to be there next year, we're just chasing our tail, gentlemen. I do respect what you're doing, but this is crisis time, and it is raining. I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you, Mr. Dardino. It is raining. So I hope that you take my words seriously, and I volunteer my time.
I have to comment. Can I, please? Go ahead. All right. I didn't give you all the items that the town is working on to raise revenue, but you said, like, what is the town doing for the future? And there are people in this town working for the future. There's a group that's trying to run sewage down 28, up Concord Street. All right, if that happens, we right now have a very little industrial base, a very small industrial base.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we don't have sewage. You want to know why? Why don't people come to North Reading? We don't have sewage. Okay? This group proposes to run a sewage line that goes down 28, right out to Concord Street. Okay, and if that's done, the thought is that we would get investment from major companies. Okay, and we would raise our tax base. So when you say nothing's being done for the future, it just simply isn't true. This process is very slow. There's lots of things being done. I only mentioned a couple. There's lots of things being done. Well, how many of them will work? Not all of them. And will they cover the number? I'm not so hopeful that they will cover the number. I think that we need the economy to turn around first. But I agree with you. And I think that, you know, there are things going on. And I don't wanna discount those hardworking people that put together this septic, this sewage plant.
Well, you know what? If
They're gonna-
you truly believe in what you're saying? Well, then
What,
what you need to
if
do is you need
people
to
are working
present
for
it.
the future?
Yeah, you need to
Of course
present it.
they are.
You need to show us you need to show us taxpayers, you need to have those people in this room presenting to us. If that
They're here.
future is in their hands, we need to start seeing that associated with it. You show cuts, but you also need to show solutions. And where this coming, because our schools are going in the wrong direction. If you don't show these townspeople
Yeah.
where the money's gonna come in the future, and if we're gonna rely it on the storage system, and we're not seeing how that's gonna attract in the businesses, you gotta have that all tied together. I don't see it all tying together. You have one little solution, but I don't see the next Jordan's Furniture trying to come into this town. If you bring this, is what's gonna come. You have no guarantees. You need to have the plan tied together. It's a bigger picture. I know it's a hard thing to grasp, but the bigger picture is something we've lost touch with, and we need to bring it back. In all due respect.
If I may comment, and Phil alluded to this, you're right. We do need to find additional sources of revenue. And certainly, building a commercial base is, you know, on the radar screen. We have an opportunity over the Berry Center. It's there, it's open. The problem is that there are no takers at this point. And in this case, sewerage is not the issue there because they are set up to provide sewage. What Phil alluded to is we've had a wastewater committee going on for a number of years. They wanted to propose at this town meeting the creation of the sewer district. And the dollar number that they're talking about as an override required to get this thing off the ground was a $40 million override. And I had asked and suggested to them that they hold off and that we vote on that at an October town meeting and present it to vote at the November election. The purpose was not to mix this issue with that issue. Right? Now, when I say a $40 million program, the board hasn't voted on the mix of the distribution, but if it was 25% paid for across the town, because there's some gain for everybody, and then 75% for betterment, right? It would mean that out of the pockets of all the taxpayers, there'd be the funding of a $10 million bond over a period of time, and the balance, the $30 million, would be paid for by the people that are serviced. And the target people that are serviced would start with Martin's Pond and come up the Route 128 Business District and eventually spread down to Concord Street, which are the only properties we have for commercial development in the community. Right. Now, the seed money for some of this has been paid for as part of the Berry project. We've been using that as a leverage to develop that. But clearly, we do know that we've got to improve that tax base. We can't go on forever the way we are. And I'm sure there are other ideas. I know Michael and Phil are heading up Energy Conservation Committee to try to make some changes in our capital infrastructure to save some money. There have been suggestions from a number of townspeople about advertisements and things like that. Those are small dollars compared to what we could achieve with, you know, overall capital development. But those things are on the radar screen, and in some cases are moving well along. Mr. Hamlin could elaborate in much more detail what's been done to date. But I think at this point I'd like to keep our focus on
I just felt it had to be said.
budget.
I really would like to see the big picture. And the last thing, actually two last things quickly. Have you given any thought to hiring a full-time grant writer for this town? And let them obviously support themselves, but bring in some revenue. And a lot of the other towns that I've spoken with have done that, and it's been very successful for them bringing in revenue. Something to consider, a full-time grant writer, short money, but a huge gain. And the last thing is the Hood School PTA is holding a auction night this Friday night. Would love it if everybody would consider attending. You can call my house and get tickets, but you should really seriously think about joining us. We can talk more about this on Friday evening.
Thank you.
Bob, just...
Yes, Steve.
Mike, the other thing that we did, and if you recall last year, we offered an override proposal, which was a comprehensive three-year budgetary plan, which looked out 3 years. We were talking about even doing 5 years, but when the finance team finally landed on the 3-year, we thought that would be something that people could comprehend, look at, and look down the road rather than a 5-year plan. We were looking well beyond the 3 years. That hasn't been abandoned necessarily, and those numbers can always be updated and talked about it. We talk about it on a regular basis. The thing is, people tend to focus on the issue of the day, or, when we have issues with doggy parks and things like that, rather than the big picture stuff. But we have not lost sight, and we have not lost focus, even with the change in members of this board. And hopefully with the long-term administrator, hopefully that'll be here. And let's continuity to continue with this hard holder, yeah. Continue to, have these programs like the sewer district that we're talking about. I mean, Dave, how long's that wastewater committee been together now? And I can say I first got elected to the board in 1988, and we were proposing a sewer district in Concord Street back then, and we're still talking about it now. So things don't happen quickly, but we haven't lost sight. Absolutely. But it takes money. But it takes additional money to invest in these types of programs in order to make money. And we're having a hard time making ends meet with the revenues that we have to maintain what we have, never mind what we want to do down the road. So what we have to do is we have to get into the mentality of the general public here that we have to be making these investments for the infrastructure, first of all, so that we can generate more economic impact, positive impact to offset the real estate taxes. But more importantly, we have to invest in what we have to maintain, and what we want to maintain for our school system.
If you want the public to actually buy into what we're saying, you need to present them a picture to show the results. Right now, all you've been showing me, stabilization, how are you going to cut here, how are you going to put something to recurring? That doesn't even, that doesn't tell me where we're going to be in 2010, 2012.
You can't answer that.
All this investment you do, can you show me the results, show me what they are.
What do you, I'm not clear on what you're proposing. I mean, if I may say, Mike, are you reading the paper? You seeing what other towns are doing? You seeing what's going on all over the place? I mean, in other words, what are you proposing? I mean, what are you proposing? If you've got ideas other than what we've done or are doing, by all means, believe me, I don't think we have all the ideas. But if you've got other ideas, it's one thing to say, I want to see something, but there is something. There's something to show. Is it, but I'm not sure what
Maybe
you
I'm
want to
wrong.
see us do.
I could be missing it, but I'm here to tell you, you're missing it. Bill.
Yeah.
You've got to track where the next set of revenues coming for this town. You need to do it. You as the board need to sit around and think about, how are we going to track the next Jordan Furniture to North Reading? Okay, how are you going to track the next companies come in and start bringing that tax revenue in here, start creating a commercial tax rate in this town, and start bringing in the revenue? That's all. There's no other answer. There is no other solution. You can talk about all the wastewater you want in the world, but there's only one answer, and that is revenue. That's it. You can't cut the fire department anymore, the police department. You can do whatever you want to Park and Rec. You can go ahead and close the library. But that's not going to fix your problem, Bill. Expenses are going up 8 to 10% a year. Healthcare costs continue to increase. I run a business, okay?
Yeah.
I do the same thing every single day with my business. And you know what I do? I go out and I invest the money. Grant writers. I go out and invest the money in a grant writer if I was you, and I bring the revenue in this town. I go out and spend the money. If this wastewater is a solution, guys, then present it to the town. Let us know. I'm all for it. I'd support it, because if you tell me you're going to spend 40, but you're going to bring in 300 million, I'm all for it. I'll sign up for it today.
We can't guarantee, if I may, Bob. But
That's what's-
but we cannot guarantee that. I mean, we are looking forward ahead to the future with the storage on Concord Street. I'm just gonna use that as an example. But I cannot guarantee you, and I don't know if you're actually looking for a guarantee, but I cannot tell you that Jordan's Furniture will come in. I cannot tell you that the Great Western will build a hotel. What I can tell you is we are looking toward putting that storage in so that those businesses may be attracted to North Reading. That's what I can tell you.
Mr. Vino, I can guarantee you this. If you don't do it, if you don't attract them, we will fail. This town will fail. That's a
If you
guarantee.
could, please, stop looking at the negative side. We are trying to do this. I mean, we are not sitting on this, the wastewater proposal, but you're right, there's going to be money involved in it, and I understand that. It's going to be overrides, we have to sell that. What I'm saying is we are doing that, but you're looking for a guarantee that we'll spend 40 million and bring in 250 million in the year 2010.
Joe,
There's nobody can guarantee that.
I think, I'm gonna take Mike up on his offer to form a committee, because I think he's,
Yeah,
I think he's on target.
idea.
And I don't think he's not looking for guarantees. What he's saying is that we need to put more energy into finding